In a world where it's becoming harder and harder to find physical copies of games, in the arcade world, it's practically a dying medium. The cost of not only maintaining the hardware, but also finding room for it in your collection is both physically difficult and financially troublesome. I've got some space, but none that I want to devote to an entire room of arcade machines. That's why today's review is a game that's rarely discussed, but is one of the last released in a dying breed of entertainment known as arcades. Now, unfortunately I don't have the arcade machine, but I've got the next best thing, the actual game in digital form on the Wii's Virtual Console. So, without further ado, let's check it out. Sengoku 3 is the third and final installment in the Sengoku beat-em-ups trilogy, and man did they save the best for last. While there were certain game mechanics I missed from the previous entries, the entertainment elements far surpassed those titles, leaving Sengoku 3 as the most memorable of the trilogy. SNK, a rival company of Capcom, tried for years to match Capcom's more popular franchises with ones that were less popular but still fantastic franchises all on their own. SNK was known for their arcade games and high-quality graphics. While trying to spar with Capcom didn't always go so well for the company, it isn't entirely the reason why SNK collapsed in on itself, going bankrupt just 1 year prior to Sengoku 3's release. And after delegating major properties like the Samurai Showdown and King of Fighters series to smaller developers instead of in-house development, Sengoku saw the same fate. Developer Noise Factory began work on the final Sengoku beat-em-up, and wow, was it smart to pass things off to them. But I bet you're wondering, aren't there some other games called Sengoku that are released by Capcom? And what is a Sengoku anyways? No, this has nothing to do with you, monkey boy, get out of here! There's a reason why so many games are titled Sengoku, and no, Capcom's Sengoku Basara series has nothing to do with the Neo Geo trilogy. See, Sengoku is actually a period of time in Japanese history from about 1467 until 1615, where tensions were high amongst warring statesmen. It all came to an end during the battle at Osaka in the year 1615, leading the country into a land of peace. So is this game a history lesson? Not unless the hordes of the undead are involved. Much like the first two titles, Sengoku 3's story is simple. Hordes of undead samurai warriors are now in the present day, and it's up to your clan of ninjas to defeat the evil warlord to restore peace to present-day times. There's a bunch of very vague lines in the beginning of the game, but most of it is nonsensical and unimportant. Keep it simple, folks. Kill the bad guys. And this is a beat-em-up after all. While the previous game entries only had players choose between a cowboy and a ninja, this time around you get some anime-inspired warriors from the feudal era. You can choose between 4 different characters initially. Kagetsura, the eye-patch-wearing leader of the group, a samurai named Falcon, hailing from Spain of all places, Kongo, the slow but powerful giant monk, and the agile and nimble female of the group, Kurenai. Players are later joined by 2 more warriors if you successfully defeat them and finish the 3rd stage of the game. Byaki, a man who can summon demons who is wrongfully accused of betraying the clan, and the only one who believes of his innocence, the beautiful dancer and fan-wielding fighter Okuni. It was clear that SNK wanted Okuni to mirror their more famous busty starlet from the King of Fighters series, Mai Shirunai, right on down to giving her a sprite dedicated to those digital giblets. Hey, anything to sell the game, right? Regardless of the fan service, the game's characters are all highly detailed, colorful, and fun to look at while battling the hordes of undead samurai and ninjas. There's tons of great enemies to fight, which keeps things refreshing in beat-em-ups, which can sometimes get lazy and make everything a palette swap, so it's nice to see some variety in the baddies you fight. The characters were designed by longtime Samurai Showdown illustrator Shiroi Iji, who left SNK not long after completion of this title, so it's no wonder these characters are memorable. Okay, stop that. The graphics in this game are excellent for the most part. I'll be dazzled looking at reflections of cities in rain puddles, seeing the driplets of water from the stormy skies of the USA stage, but then we'll spot a very lazy looking fire hydrant spraying out very flat looking water streams. There's a lot to take in, and while the sprites take up a good chunk of space in levels, I kinda wish the camera was pulled back a bit. One of the common complaints about beat-em-ups is that you can never see the enemies when they're attacking because they like to hide on the sides of the levels where you can't see them. This is a gameplay trick often used in these types of games, so it's not strange when you see it happen here. But it's odd that they decided to make the bosses get knocked back into the frame when they are defeated. There's some branching paths that lead to some interesting parts of the levels, but nothing that really drives up the replay value that much. It's more or less another way to get to the same place. Although I'm not entirely sure what a cup of men tastes like. Also, do you think the developer knows that their name is all over the background in the city? Also, is that a Neo Geo Pocket? Oh, SNK, so clever. Do those mailboxes say dust on them? So many little details that I have so many questions about. While I enjoyed most of the music in this game, it's nothing memorable. Though the previous games had a more traditional Japanese themed soundtrack, here we have tracks that are less ambient and more upbeat. It's not impressive enough to be compared to games with far superior soundtracks such as Metamorphic Force, but is certainly on par with titles like Alien vs. Predator. It's not catchy, just competent, and that's okay. The controls take strides to remain as fluid as possible, and it shows here. Double tapping the direction you want your character to go in results in your player dashing ahead at a quick pace. What's really great about this is the ability to move up and down while running, creating the ability to work the element of surprise in your attacks. For once, you can stand on the offensive line instead of waiting for them to come out first. You can also collect projectiles such as bombs, shurikens, and, plates? You can collect as many as you want, but the second you pick up a different kind is when you lose the quantity of the previous item and it defaults back down to 3. You can work these into your combos as well for devastating attacks. Sengoku 3 is all about having an intricate combo system that can sometimes prove to be troublesome at points. Depending on which button you attack with, you can begin pulling off combos using either a jumping or running attack, a melee thrust, or a heavy slash. You can also press various different button combinations, which, in the same vein of Super Smash Bros., is the same for each character. There's down twice in either of the attack buttons, as well as the most powerful move, down then up, and both attack buttons, causing the screen to change and a spread shot attack to occur. This hurts everything on the screen and interrupts the action of both players, but does devastating damage to your opponents. You can do these attacks when you have your special attack bar filled. You can fill up to 2 circles that contain an entire bar's worth, but the more you use these special abilities with your combos or alone, the quicker they disappear. You can fill the bars when you either get hit or attack, similar to many types of fighting game special bars. In fact, the game encourages air juggling opponents by incorporating dashing and projectiles to extend your combos to deal devastating damage. The trickiest attack is the emergency escape, which lets the player escape by turning into a wooden log and then disappearing, only to reappear in a less chaotic spot. The problem with this is that it replaces the previous game's dodge and block options. It's awkward to press the jump and 2 attack buttons together at the same time to enable this option, causing many times where I just died instead of escaping. Part of this could be because I was using the newer Wii U Classic controllers instead of the Wii Classic Controller Pro, which actually made things a little easier due to a more normal button placement. Now, I of all people love physical versions of games, but in all honesty, this version is just as compatible. The only major difference is the controls. Part of the allure of arcade games is going to the arcade and popping in quarters to finish these titles. While the Sengoku trilogy was released on PS2 and PC in Japan, the third title has never made it to North American shores aside from the original arcade cabinet. In fact, that was how I discovered the game during a trip with some friends to Fun Spot Arcade a few years back.
I'll teach you to take my Cheetos. That's the whole story behind this game.
What?
That all these ninjas had a huge like vat of Cheetos, and these zombie samurai came in and stole their Cheetos.
Wow.
Yeah, that's clearly the whole story.
When I heard it was on the Virtual Console, I had to download it, and I'm glad I did, as this may be the final way to play the title as we move further and further into a digital age. So many titles are lost to shoddy emulation thanks to MAME. In fact, many games tell you right when you start them up in MAME that they are not exact and that certain sound and visual problems may occur during playback. Games like Metamorphic Force, Alien vs. Predator, and Cadillacs and Dinosaurs are just a few beat-em-ups which will most likely never see a proper digital or physical release in the United States on more modern systems. Because of this, being able to grab these titles when you can is totally worth it in this circumstance, as you have the ability to get the game directly from the company that made it. While Sengoku 1 and 2 focus more on an Altered Beast style of gameplay, allowing your characters to transform into more powerful warriors, Sengoku 3's allure is a stronger focus on fast, flashy gameplay. The combo system works for the most part to advance the standards of button mashing, allowing players to think about how they want to attack before making it happen. Where it fails is that during combos you cannot cancel out of them, leaving players open to hits from surrounding bad guys. Because the emergency attack is harder to pull off, it made me wish for a block or parry button instead. There are some moments where your sword may bounce off your enemies, which could leave either of you open for a beating. Most enemies are undead swordsmen, or creepy clumps of masks that have the most annoying laughs. Many enemies sound like Roman candles when they are defeated, a sound effect which eventually becomes grating when paying attention to it. There's also hyena demons, old men with bat projectiles, and frogs that lick boobs? Hey, watch that tongue there, Froggy. The stages range in difficulty from easy to hard, yet I didn't have much of a problem until the final stage. You can adjust the level of difficulty as well as the amount of lives, but when you run out of lives, you start blowing through your continues. After 5 continues, it's game over. Luckily, you can save your progress and always come back later, but either way, you have to start the level you're on over again when you continue. There's 3 stages to pick from at first, then followed by 2 more, and then finally the last level. The final level is brutal, as it's the longest and the enemies are even more relentless. They're not afraid to gang up on you and take you down, so getting them all to one side is the best strategy for success. The final boss is mind-numbingly hard, so much so that I could only beat him when doing multiplayer with a friend. The ending is drab. After finishing the boss, we get a very awkward cutscene that kind of implies that they're never going to see each other again, then they run off into the distance together. It doesn't really make much sense. Sengoku 3 is a quality title that is absolutely worth the price of admission. While a physical copy was released for the Neo Geo, it released to extremely limited copies and fetches a pretty penny. So getting the game digitally in this official capacity is not bad, especially considering that the alternative is tracking down the arcade game. It's a landmark title that advances to a more memorable entry in the series than the previous games, as well as making the case that there is room for beat-em-ups to improve upon themselves. Despite the controls not being customizable, this is a great title on the Wii. And if you don't have a Wii and you have a Wii U, you can pick it up on the Wii's Virtual Console. Now if only we could get Metamorphic Force on the Wii U. What was Konami's number again? Let's give it a shot.
Thank you for calling Konami. For pachinko games, press 1. For soccer games, press 2. For Metal Gear, press 3. To complain about how awful Castlevania Lords of Shadow is, press 4. To be spit on by a Konami executive, press 5. Press 6 to complain about the lack of Hudson Soft games that are coming out. Press 7 to hate us.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this episode of Dude You Haven't Played This Game. This is the Season 5 opener, and if you're interested in the rest of the show, check out this episode on the left-hand side, which is the last episode of the previous season, and that was where I covered a little survival horror game called Haunting Ground. And on the video on the right-hand side, you can check that out as well. That's for a beat-em-up called Undercover Cops, which never got a release in the United States. Check out both of those videos if you like them. And once again, thanks for watching.